Hi, I'm Sean Alexis, and this is The Round Table. How you doing, everybody? My name is Sean Alexis. I'm a civil rights activist. I work with Black Lives Now, as well as Leaders of Liberty. Our main focus is to address legislative change, to make a significant difference in laws that disproportionately affect the minorities and Black people. So that's why we're here, and that's why I'm a part of these organizations. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to use this opportunity for open the floor to everyone to, of course, you guys have been doing this for a while, but if you can just take a minute or two to introduce yourselves to our audience.
My name is Joshua Rydell. I'm one of the candidates for Broward County State Attorney. Listen, I'm a career-long criminal defense attorney. I've never been a prosecutor. I'm very cognizant of what the current movement has opened society's eyes to, a criminal justice system that this has been going on for decades. So listen, I've lived this for my career. The reality is we are at a crossroads of how we can deal with criminal justice in our county. We have a new way forward. We have a new and inclusive way forward, and I think we need to follow that path, and we need to start thinking outside the box, and we need creative, innovative leadership, and we need people that are willing to bring people to the table, which really hasn't been done before. So I look forward to the discussion today. And
my name is Al Pollack, and I'm a candidate for Broward County Sheriff. I spent more than 35 years with the Broward Sheriff's Office. I started back in 1977 as a patrolman. And the reason why I joined law enforcement is to try to make that difference in people's lives that I had, that I came into contact with. I grew up in Liberty City during the early era of the 60s and 70s, and we didn't have a lot of Black police officers as role models back during my growing up days. So I've seen the issues that affected my community, and also I joined law enforcement to try to make that difference and do as much as I can. Can we do a better job in law enforcement? Absolutely. But let me say this, I'm no expert, but I'm willing to listen and learn. And thank you so much for having me.
My name is Ruby Green. I am a candidate for Broward County Public Defender. I am from Pompano Beach, which by way of Kaya City. I'm one of 15 siblings and the only one to graduate and go to college. I actually was the sole document signer in my household since the second grade because my mom couldn't read or write because she had to leave school early to pick beans, cottons, and strawberries in the fields. I've been working at a public defender's office for almost 11 years, and I've served roles such as a supervisor in county court, and I know that we need change in our criminal justice system.
I'm Teresa Fanning Williams, and I'm running to be your head prosecutor of the Broward County State Attorney. I've had 25 years of experience in criminal law. I have a degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the administration of criminal justice. I am the only candidate in the race who is certified by the Florida Bar as an expert in criminal trial. And I am the only candidate who really stood up for criminal justice reform when it wasn't convenient. After my first half of my career from being a prosecutor, and I started my own practice in Broward County, I really saw exactly what was going on, and it shocked me. I saw a system that was about making people money and getting people reelected. And so I realized that the only way that I was really going to get people to understand what was happening in our courthouse and the way that people were being treated was to run for state attorney. So again, I'm Teresa Fanning Williams. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now, I had hoped that Congressman Deutch would be able to join us.
I'm here.
Oh, yes, sir. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for making the time.
Of course. Good to be with you.
Awesome. We're really excited to have you and Congresswoman Schultz when she gets an opportunity to join us later. Appreciate you taking the time. We'd love to hear about what type of work you're doing.
Sure, and thanks for the invitation. It's a really important discussion. We're in the middle of this, I think, long overdue conversation about racism throughout our society. It's especially true in policing, and we need change. Where we are in Congress, we're confronting our long history of racism, injustice, and oppression, and it's history that's ingrained in every aspect of our society. On policing, though, as we've all known, and as fortunately the rest of America has finally come to realize, the consequences are deadly, and that's the whole point of the protest. That's why you're seeing Black Lives Matter protests at Major League Baseball games, and there's so much more change that's happening. The way that the community has responded as advocates and leaders to the challenges these past several months has created this opportunity that I think we need to seize upon to bring justice and peace to the families of those who've been killed, and to every Black American who finds it impossible to see police protecting and serving our communities if the fears that have been expressed and that we've seen play out are so real. Issues. I'm grateful that you brought us all together today to address these important issues, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. And I hope that this moment that we're having is one that, with your advocacy and push, with support from me and my colleagues, is going to continue. It can't just end now.
Thank you, Congressman. I wanted to open the floor to my co-host if you have any questions for any of the individuals or the congressman.
All right, first, I wanted to say thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for having me. I would like to thank the state's attorney office and the county for implementing the civil citation. First of all, the civil citation has been a big help with addressing juveniles being arrested in Broward County. And instead of them being arrested now, it's mandatory to issue them a citation and they complete a program. So that kind of stems the pipeline from school to jail, prison pipeline. So I'm very happy to see that has been accomplished here in Florida. But what we're here to do is address a couple other things. First, I would like to start off by saying, does anyone on this call not support the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Or would anybody here perhaps like to forfeit their Fourth Amendment rights? No? Then how is it possible that none of the officials on this call are aware that qualified immunity has allowed the Broward County Sheriff's Office to violate both an individual's civil rights and Fourth Amendment rights without consequence? Sheriff Tony, are you okay with this? Are you okay with your officers violating the civil rights and Fourth Amendment rights of minorities and citizens of Broward County?
Absolutely not. And it's not just limited to Broward Sheriff's Office. I think the issues that we have with qualified immunity has provided opportunities for law enforcement officials who break their oath to get away with repeated acts of behaviors that impact this entire country, not just here in Broward County. The things that occur here at BSO in terms of deputies participating in excessive force, or even getting to a point where we kill someone out here, we can see the echoing effect that it could have. An incident that occurred in Minneapolis had sparked an international concern when it comes to police brutality. So I am 100% opposed to any form of excessive force or what can occur. And I am not here today in the sense of a political candidate. I am the sheriff, and I've had an opportunity to introduce a lot of things in this organization, and it's my intent to continue to push them forward. This is very personal to me, and I hope you hear that. I'm not going to be the first African-American sheriff in 105 years to ignore the issues of discriminatory practices and prejudice that exist in every facet of this criminal justice system. I am now the gatekeeper. I control the influx of what goes in and what goes out. And I'm not going to fall asleep on this watch. And I'm here to make sure I hear with you, but more than hear, act upon the things I can act upon immediately. So thank you for the question.
All right, you're welcome, and thank you for the answer. Now, Sheriff Tony, do I have your support for the removal of qualified immunity?
I think if we can get to a legislative element where that's removed, I'm not going to argue against it. I think we take an oath here in this community where the extension of so many different due process elements is impacting our ability as law enforcement administrators to get rid of bad cops. But again, I'm here to listen and take as many notes as I can as well.
Well, thank you, Sheriff Tony, and thank you for your support ultimately in the perhaps the removal of qualified immunity. I appreciate that. Now, I just want to make it very clear that Black Lives Matter is not anti-police in any way. What we are is not you taking away our rights, or any individual body taking away the rights of minorities or people of color. Now, some of these rights were fought for by some of the greatest Black men and women in American history. They not only fought for it, they died for these rights, you know, our civil rights and Fourth Amendment right. Now, the purpose of me bringing this up is obviously because it violates the rights, but also because this law does not do what it's designed to do. And this is to our legislators on the call, Congress Deutch. This law doesn't do what it's designed to do, because how is it possible that this law could shield government officials from the burdens associated with litigation and trial when every other day a Black man or woman is either being beaten or killed by law enforcement? That would be, if that law is effective, that would go to say that no officer goes to court, because a Yale Law Journal study says that the law is brought up to be used 80% of the time in the summons phase or the judgment phase of the trial, which means it's already went through litigation. So the law doesn't even do what it's designed to do, but what it does do is enable law enforcement officers to violate the rights of individuals, which if you support the rights of civil rights and your Fourth Amendment rights, then you would say that this is wrong. So Congressman Deutch, my question is, do you support the removal of qualified immunity?
Yeah, it is. Well, it is wrong. That's why the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act ensures that can't be used to prevent people from protecting their constitutional rights. It ends the ability of bad cops to fall back on something that would stand in the way of people from fairly exercising their constitutional rights. That's one of the. That's one of the. This is not, Sean. This is not the first time we've heard this. This was actually a really important part of the conversation that went into the drafting of the bill that Karen Bass, the chair of the Black Caucus, worked so hard on.
For that. Now, Congressman, my next move, along with my allies that are helping me, is I want to take this fight to the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, and I need legislators like yourself and like the sheriff, you know, to back me on that. So when I go propose this to the governor, so at the very least, you know, we can get this law changed on the state level, and that's a fight that it's going to be a long fight, but I'm going to do it with my partners, and I need legislators like you, like yourself, that are passionate about this, to be vocal about it.
Yeah, look, there are lots of battles that need to be fought with this governor to uphold our constitutional rights. We're having that battle literally as we speak, as the governor went to court to violate the constitutional rights of people who serve time, serve their sentence, and are now being prevented from voting. Overruling the will of the people of Florida is what the governor has tried to do by going to court. So it is one of many battles that we'll have to face together, which is continuing to stand up to defend the constitutional rights of every Floridian, and not just those that the governor thinks will support him.
Yeah, voter right restoration is definitely a big thing, but we'll continue moving on. Thank you.
Sean, could I just add something for a moment? You know, I'm in communication with the Broward Chiefs of Police Association on a multitude of issues, and you should know this in this entire panel here. There are a lot of good senior-ranking chiefs of police here who are going to fight this with you. We understand that we're not only just the gatekeepers, but we are the first line of defense when it comes to dealing with employees or law enforcement officers who violate our civilians' rights. We have to be the ones to be able to rectify this and have the most courage. Because if we're not vocal about it, if we're not speaking and we're not standing there with you fighting these issues, you're less than likely to have a greater impact. They need to see this from the people who wear this uniform. There's nothing more despicable than a dirty and bad cop, and it impacts all of us. This is a very honorable profession. Sean, you alluded to it, that this is not a matter of every cop is a bad cop. But as you can see, it only takes one, and this whole country stands the risk of burning. And so I'm willing to fight that battle with you, not just today, but tomorrow and any other day after that.
I appreciate that. And, you know, being a police officer is much like being a pilot. There's no room for bad pilots when you're on the plane. So moving right along, the next thing that we were looking forward to touching on is amending the Law Officers Bill of Rights. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with that because that is an integral part of police training. In regards to the Law Officers Bill of Rights, it's our view that it's completely unjust and irresponsible to allow the police to handle their own misconduct. This not only puts the public at risk, but there is in no way possible that the public can trust that there will be a fair and unbiased punishment for the officer's misconduct. So in light of this, we have proposed amending Part J, Section 2 of the Law Officers Bill of Rights so that the Broward County Commission would be responsible for handling incidents relating to law enforcement misconduct. Now, this would work, the commission would work in conjunction with the Broward County State Prosecutor's Office. Representative or Congressman Deutch, how do you feel about this proposal? Sorry.
I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I can tell you that one of the things that we tried to do in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is ensure that that in every case where there's use of force, in every case where there are constitutional rights at stake, that there is a greater role for citizens to play. It starts at the beginning and having standards in place that will guide the process for hiring and training police officers, and it goes forward, as I talked about. If people are let go because they violated those standards, that they can't then just go to another jurisdiction. But it also recognizes that the citizens should know what happened and should have a say. So I'm happy to look more specifically at this proposal. I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds certainly the idea is consistent with what we're trying to do in the federal legislation.
John, David Kennedy, can I hop in for a second?
Yeah.
I'm running for state attorney in Broward County. Look, just like Congressman Deutch, well, I have 15 years of experience. Much of that time, or a portion of that time, was actually within DC. I worked for Senator Roland Burris as his executive assistant, and then also worked in the Obama administration in the Congressional Liaisons Department. So dealing with policy and legislation is necessary, especially on the state level. And that's what we're talking about. One of the major things that you're hitting on with what Black Lives Matter is hitting on right now is coupling the two. What's on the ground, which is what the state attorney and the sheriff are doing as a as criminal justice system as a whole, and then implementing that up the ladder through the legislative process. I think it's extremely important to get the community involved, and we have a plan for that. But in addition to that, it's imperative that the state attorney, even before we get to that level of are we going to prosecute, are we not going to prosecute a police officer, is integrated into the process with regards to disciplinary boards, okay? Because as we can see with the police officer in Fort Lauderdale who pushed down the woman on her knees who was protesting, by the time it gets up to FDLE, he was already cited for over 60, I believe about 70 violations or complaints which went through the office. The state attorney's office has a role to play in that. And as state attorney, what I've proposed and what I would do as a policy, working with my law enforcement officer, or our law enforcement brothers and sisters, is actually sitting on the disciplinary boards and also getting daily and weekly briefings as you do in DC, which is what I always loved about DC, is that they were consistently briefed. Daily and weekly briefings on police brutality and police misconduct so we can identify these individuals. Now, we do currently in Broward County have a special prosecutions unit. That special prosecutions unit, look, Broward County State Attorney's Office has 225 attorneys. I'm currently a prosecutor in the office. And we have 225 attorneys. About 8 of us, it's really about 7 of us because somebody's about to leave, are Black males. We have never had a Black person in the special prosecutions unit. A year ago, I attempted to get on the in the unit because of the things that we are talking about today, and unfortunately, the powers that be would not allow that to happen. However, it is imperative that we work directly with our law enforcement partners before it gets to the level where we need to prosecute. Because you're right, the Fourth Amendment violations and constitutional violations need to stop, and they stop here.
Thank you for that.
Sean, this is Scott. This is Scott Israel. I'd like to put yourself and weigh in on the conversation respectfully.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Well, first I want to, so many people viewing today, I tested positive about 10 days ago, and so many people have offered their prayers and text messages, and on behalf of me and my family, you don't know what it meant to us, and I'm, in my physician's words, well on my way to recovery. I understand this. The Black communities in Broward County are not looking for a 1-year plan or a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan, nor should they be. They're looking for a 3-day plan to get this turned around. As Dr. King said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And we as a community have got to stop this injustice. And the only way we could do that, Sean, is by re-electing me and putting me back in and telling the Republicans in Tallahassee, we're in charge of Broward County. We decide who the elected officials are in Broward County, not one governor, when I had almost 600,000 votes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Israel. We're looking to, if you have the opportunity to win your election, what difference would you bring to this conversation? Because you have been in office or had been in office for a long time, and there were still a lot of issues with regards to the treatment of Black people under your management. So what different?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The first thing I want to do is, or will do, is attack systemic racism. I'll have a committee appointed, and we will look at every current policy and procedure that exists at the Broward Sheriff's Office to see where there may be implicit bias. And the state attorney knows this very well, panelists, is to take every deputy involved shooting and take that investigative ability voluntarily away from the Broward Sheriff's Office and turn that over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Because as Sean said before, it's the perception that communities have. Communities, whether we believe we can police ourselves or not, at this stage, it's irrelevant. Communities don't believe we can police ourselves, and I'm with the communities. And whenever you have to go, you're always best going with the people. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power.
John, can I jump in right quick, sir?
Yeah, go right
It'll
ahead.
be very short. It'll be very short. First of all, I have no problems with creating an independent, review board. But this is what I hear a lot, and this is what I've seen throughout my career. The breakdown, pretty much, and it's not all their fault, is with the state attorney's office. Mostly, all the sheriffs that I've worked for lately, what they do is anytime that we've had police misconduct of any time, it's been referred to the state attorney's office for review. And then the deputy's position at that time is placed on hold. But sometimes it takes a year, 2 years just to get a result back from the state attorney's office. That's the problem. And that's what's frustrating the community. They're saying, what's taking so long when you prosecute us in 2 months, 6 months, 3 months? So that we have to streamline that process. And then after that, it goes to the review board. And then that's when the process, really starts. If they don't find anything criminal. The holdup and the slowdown is with the state attorney's office. Number one, they never have that many prosecutors to look at these cases. The officers, when the case hit the state attorney's office, the officers are placed on what we call a Brady list. That means all the lawyers get a copy of that. So when you go before those lawyers, they are immediately aware that you are being under investigations. But we can do a better job. Absolutely, we can.
Thank you very much for that. Now, Mr. Israel, my question to you is, you mentioned around the time Trayvon Martin got shot, and you've been a sheriff for a while. Back in 2017, there was a report by the FBI database talking about hate crimes in Broward County, Florida in 2017. And Broward County, Florida in 2017 had the highest amount of hate crime out of all the counties in the entire state of Florida. So, and at this current time, it's the second highest for hate crimes in the entire state of Florida. My question is to you, Scott Israel, what are you doing, or what do you propose to do if you become sheriff to prevent hate crimes? Because a lot of hate crimes are against gays and also minorities, obviously. So do you have a plan or strategy to address this?
I do. First off, I'm going to put a human rights commission together, and it'll be done it's not going to take a long time. It'll be done within the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you for that. And I just want to make it abundantly clear that as a group that supports Black Lives Matter and any civil rights activism that's going on fighting for the rights of individuals, we're not picking a Democrat or Republican side, even though personally we may support one or the other. What we're saying is that our vote will be tied to the individuals that supports the rights for all people, not some people. So whether you're Republican or Democrat, we will support you if you support the rights for all people, not some people.
Thank you, Sean.
So the next thing I'm going to talk about here is a very important topic when it involving African Americans primarily. This question is going to go to Ms. Fanning and also to Mr. Joe Kimok. What we're talking about is amending the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. Now, we know that this is a federal law, but what we're proposing is amending it on the state level, because crack cocaine is a drug that affects primarily African Americans, and once they're addicted to this drug, more than any other race, they stay a lifetime addict. When this is addressed by the police system, instead of helping African Americans recover from this horrible condition, the laws in Florida crush any hope of even the most minor offender. In the state of Florida, any amount of crack possession less than 28 grams is classified as a second-degree felony, punishable by a $10,000 fine and 15 years in prison. Prisons that work predominantly Black inmates and for-profit labor camps. So that doesn't matter if they have 1 gram, 2 grams of crack cocaine. If they're smoking it and they get caught, these individuals are not getting the same treatment as those that are addicted to opioids, that are getting recovery and opportunities to reintegrate back into society. Instead, they're getting thrown into the prison system and perpetually put back in there and never addressing their addiction and their horrible condition. What we're proposing is amending that law and reducing the sentence to either a misdemeanor or a second or third degree felony, so that they can have an opportunity at a better life and working through the rehab and recovery, just like people that are on opioids. Mr. Kimok and Ms. Fanning, would you be in support of amending this at least on the state level?
Yes, I mean, so possession of crack cocaine is currently a third-degree felony. The issue with it is the conviction itself, right? And so, yes, there are people that serve jail and prison time, and they go on probation. We have to stop treating substance abuse disorder as a criminal justice problem and start treating it as a public health problem. And so I am very much in favor of lobbying hard to make possession of all substances at most a misdemeanor. And what we have pledged in our campaign is to decriminalize the possession of all drugs, period. We will not charge possession of marijuana any amount, period. For possession of other types of drugs, what we've said is that we will put everybody into a structured, individualized, tiered diversion program that keeps convictions off their record, keeps them out of jail, out of the system, while providing them the whatever help that they need. Everyone who gets arrested and charged with felony possession case, they get through the system one way or another. But they always have that conviction on their record, which inhibits folks' abilities to get a job, to get scholarships, to get loans, to get housing. And that's what we have to prevent while aggressively treating the underlying issue itself.
Thank you for that. Now, Ms. Fanning, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I could. I'd appreciate it. What we're doing is basically ridiculous. It is tough on crime statistics that are designed to get people reelected, and I'm done with it. I'm also done with pretending like our drug rehabilitation programs that we currently have available in criminal justice are actually capable of handling the massive problem that we have in our community and the massive problem that we have in Broward. When you take a look at how people are rehabilitated, we have one residential program for people. It's a 30-day program that people are able to go to. It's not sufficient. So I'm sick and tired of waiting for the legislature to solve our problems. I think that we could take the bull by the horns and implement the great community-based programs that we have already here in Broward and significantly make a difference. So let's be proactive, let's be efficient, let's be realistic, and let's solve the problems that we have together.
Hey, Sean, can I hop in for a second as a state attorney candidate?
Give me 1 second. I'll let you hop in for a minute right after this. Okay? And we're
Not a problem. Thank you.
No problem. Now, Ms. Fanning, to stay on the topic, what we're asking you specifically is, would you support reducing the sentencing for the possession of crack cocaine for 5 grams or less?
Absolutely.
And the reason we're asking this is because powdered cocaine, which is predominantly used by Caucasians or white individuals, has a lesser sentence than crack cocaine, which is primarily used by African Americans. And the view of African Americans is that there is no political justice in the court system for us because the drugs and the problems that affect us get us higher sentences. But the same drug that's being used in the powder form by white individuals, getting them a lighter sentence in the rehab that they need. Would you support reducing the sentence for possession of 5 grams or less of crack cocaine?
Sean, I absolutely would support that, but I wholeheartedly endorse the type of legislative reform that you're referring to. And to the extent that that law is in place in the state of Florida, I, as your state attorney, would be the first person in Tallahassee to be standing right next to you promoting changes in that law.
To invite and introduce Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz. Thank you for joining us. Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Nice to be with you all.
Thank you for joining us. So we just had Congressman Deutch on for a good bit, and he had to step away. So I know you've got a limited time.
Yeah.
I'd like to give you the floor to tell us exactly what you personally have been working on in the realm of Black Lives, the movement, and everything that we're talking about today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to join you all, and hello to my candidate friends across the community.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Just quick question. If I'm not mistaken, you're on the Appropriation Committee?
I am, yes.
Okay. I understand that the bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security was just voted on and approved by the committee last night? Okay.
No, not last night, last week.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be on the floor next week.
Okay. Is there any
with a package of Homeland Security bills? I mean, with a package of the rest of the appropriations bills.
Understood. Is there any restriction for basically the Gestapo team that's running rampant through our country at this point? Because
yes.
As protesters, as activists, we're in the streets. So we're seeing our brothers and sisters in Portland and now Chicago, and the documents have leaked that they're going to be down here in South Florida soon.
So both the Commerce, Justice, Science bill and the Homeland Security bill, authored by Democrats. Obviously, what the Senate does, led by Republicans, is quite a bit different. But our bills dramatically restrict the administration's ability, the executive branch's authority in, for example, going after immigrants, in the ability for them to unlawfully send the kind of paratroopers in, basically thugs, anonymously into our cities. And so we are in both the bills that affect the Justice Department and Homeland Security, taking steps to restrict and constrict the administration's authority to essentially what we believe unlawfully detain individuals who aren't being told what crime they've committed, why they're being detained, and are essentially being spirited secretly away.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and look forward to continuing our discussions and keeping you updated.
Ms. Schultz,
Thank you, ma'am.
before you go, can I ask you one question?
Sure, my time's a little tight, but sure.
Congresswoman, you are late for your next call already. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was just going to ask you, Sheriff Tony, I know you have important things on the country level, but on the state level, we want to remove qualified immunity. And Sheriff Tony and Representative Deutch already said they support this. If I go and I fight this battle with the governor of Florida, would you be by my side fighting that battle to remove qualified immunity because it violates the civil rights of individuals in Florida?
Absolutely. That's part of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
We want to do it on the state level because we understand that the Republicans may repeal you and give you guys a hard time, but thank you for your time in supporting that.
You're welcome. Yeah, we have to make sure that that there is a disincentive to violating people's rights. For sure. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you guys for your time. So I have one last question on my side, at least, on the very least. Mr. Pollack, I know that you're running for sheriff, and this question is just kind of to see your perspective. One of the things we're proposing is ending the free labor prison system in Broward County. The reason is because Florida is one of the few states that still implement free labor practices to the inmates. Now, allowing the system like this to exist where a company or person profits off the free labor of a predominantly African-American prison system is a disgrace to America. That is about as close as you can get to slavery, you know, in any way possible, because they're working for free. I mean, that's it at the end of the day, and the companies are profiting off them, which is not very different than when slaves worked and picked cotton. And, you know, you guys profit, not you, but, you know, individuals profited off of the back of slaves. So do you support ending the free labor prison system in Florida?
Absolutely, 100%. Broward County today is still doing it. You know, what they call it is work release, where the inmates are going out into certain cities and doing cleanups and lawn work and whatever, you know, necessary jobs, you know, that they need, you know, to take place. So Broward Sheriff's Office is still running that program today. So I will do away with that and implement more vocational type programs to help inmates so we can work them back into our society, you know, working with the school board and working with our community organization. I totally disagree with that. To me, it reminds me of slavery when you're driving down the street and you see inmates out there doing labor, you know, where they only get maybe 15 cents a day or 10 cents a day or whatever, you know, the amount is. Absolutely 100%. I'll stop it immediately.
I agree, and thank you for that. Are there any officials or legislators on this call that would like to weigh in on that? Because like he said, and like I acknowledge, this is a very controversial topic and a very important topic to the African-American community and Black Lives Matter. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I'll weigh in.
Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead, Wayne. You've been patient. I'll pause.
No, I would say, you know, the sheriff of Broward County is not a legislature. They're not there to make law. They're not there to change law. And as the sheriff, you're there to protect all communities and to protect the community. If that's something that wants to be changed, it needs to be a legislature. That doesn't need to be something that the sheriff is taking charge of. And with qualified immunity, you know, you asked that question earlier. I would not get rid of that. That's what we have a judge and a jury for, and that's what we have. You know, these citizen review boards. We already have those. They've been in place. And qualified immunity has been around. It's been justified by the Supreme Court. It's been in place for a long time. I know as a Republican in the group, I'm probably not the most, you know, that's probably not going to, you know, everybody's not going to agree with that position. But, you know, it's time to start, you know, getting rid of some corruption in Broward County, and it's time to start fixing some things. And so as the sheriff, it's becoming too politicized. We're starting to become politicians. And by the sheriffs saying they're going to go and make all this legislation, that's not their job. Their job is to keep the community safe and be there for public safety. Let the legislatures do that. That's what they're there for. If you want to be a legislature, then fill out the proper paperwork and go work for the legislation.
So, Mr. Wayne, so what you're saying to me is that you support the violation of civil rights.
I don't say that at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Not at all. I believe in civil rights, and I believe every
people. You
What's
support
that?
a law that violates the civil rights of people is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that's the law, and we're there to enforce the law. We're not there to make law. We're there to enforce it. We're not there to interpret it. We're not the judge. We're not the jury. We're there to enforce the law. And qualified immunity has been around to protect the men and women. And I back the blue. I believe that, you know, the police officers, the deputies in Broward Sheriff's Office need to know they have somebody that has their back.
Do you believe civil rights are important?
Absolutely, 100%. I believe civil rights are important. Absolutely. I believe everyone should be treated equally.
Okay, so then why would you not support getting rid of a law that prevents individuals from having their civil rights?
I'll ask you this, how does it prevent them from not having civil rights?
Because it allows an officer to bypass their civil rights through a loophole in the law. And it's been proven that in itself that it's not an effective law because it doesn't do what it's designed for. So why would you support a law that doesn't even do what it's designed to do?
It's a mechanism to make sure that the officers are protected. If the officers are a bad apple and they do something incorrectly, there's a mechanism in place for them to be reviewed by review boards, for them to go to the state attorney's office. Like Mr. Pollack said earlier, you know, the state attorney's office can take 18, 24, 36 months to come back. Why is that? That's not on the sheriff. That's nothing to do with the sheriff. That has to do with the state attorney's office and the legislatures. We shouldn't be advocating, you know, changing laws. If we want to be legislators, we need to be doing, you know, applying for another job. We're here to keep the community safe, and it becomes too political. You need to take politics out of law enforcement. That's the number one thing that needs to happen. Politics and law enforcement don't mix.
Do you understand that law enforcement was enforcing Jim Crow era laws that segregated black people from white people? And do you agree that the officers that were enforcing those segregation laws were doing the right thing?
I know that, you know, I don't agree with that, right? I don't agree with that. And that was changed. And over time, you know, those laws have been changed. But, you know, law enforcement officers, we're there to, the sheriff is the constitutional officer. He is there to uphold the Constitution. He is there to follow the law. He's not there to make the law. He's not there to do anything illegal. He's not there to break the law. He's there to force the law. So that is the law that's in place currently. And if the legislatures want to change it, they can change it.
Sir, given the conversation we're having, what would you do anything different in the era that we're living in with the Black Lives Movement? Speak into that if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Look, I'm a firm believer that all lives matter, and because all lives matter, Black lives matter. So you've got to change the culture. I mean, that's the number one thing. You've got to work with the community, and you got to work with the agency so that both trust one another. Because right now, the community doesn't trust BSO, and that's dangerous for everybody. That's dangerous for the community, and it's dangerous for, you know, the men and women that work there.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Wayne, I want to ask you a question. Now, what I heard you suggest is that one of the solutions was retraining officers in certain areas. Now, you could understand how, for example, if a person is a pedophile, I know it's a little unconventional, but if they are a pedophile and they get convicted, they serve their time, they go through whatever program they have to, they're released back into society. There are laws in place to prevent them from working at daycares or elementary schools because, you know, they need to protect the children. Now, what we're saying is the same thing needs to happen for law enforcement. It's not that you can't retrain your officers or you haven't had the opportunity to. It's that Black men and women of America need laws and legislation to protect us from you and from the individuals that would violate our rights. So retraining an individual is not an adequate solution to guarantee the protection of minorities. Do you support legislative change to protect minority rights from police officers that would break the law?
Look, I think everybody should be treated equally, whether, no matter what your race, sexual orientation is, or anything. I think that, all of the officers, the deputies, the men and women of the agency need to treat everyone equally and fairly. I don't think there should be a law there that separates how you treat one race versus another. That would be inappropriate. I think it's got to be, look, can you fix somebody that's a bad apple, right? There are people that are meant to fit certain positions in certain jobs, okay? And you've got to have people and supervisors there that can identify those issues. There are people that, are meant to be on the SWAT team. There are people that are meant to be in detention, people that are meant to be on the road. You got to be able to identify those things. You can't, it's not a one size fits all. And, there are some people that have worked, in the agency for 25 or 30 years, and they say you get set in your ways. But you've got to, we've got to increase the training. You can't give up. You can't give up on the men and women that work there, that have put their lives, lives on the line every day. We've got to support them. And you know what? If they're a bad apple, they need to go. There's, but we need to do it in a way that follows the due process rights.
Sheriff, I'm sorry, Mr. Wayne, do you understand that since 1980, that no Broward County Sheriff's officer has been charged with an on-duty police shooting since 1980. No officer has been prosecuted for that. So they have shot individuals. Individuals have died. Their civil rights have been violated. Whatever reason, police have shot and killed unarmed Black men and women. And since 1980, not a single one of them have been prosecuted. And that's from the FBI database. So for you to say that all we need to do is retrain, and that would be sufficient enough to guarantee the protection of minorities, that seems like not a significant enough change to guarantee our trust and have us trust you that you're going to make the changes necessary to protect the people.
Well, first of all, I haven't been the sheriff since 1980, so I don't know all of the different shootings, but I do know that the Broward sheriff is not the prosecutor. So if the prosecutor hasn't prosecuted any of those crimes or any of those issues, that's something you need to discuss with the ladies and gentlemen on the panel from there. We've had the same prosecutor in Broward County for, I believe, 40 years. So if there hasn't been a prosecution, that's not anything to do with the sheriff. That's to do with the state attorney's office. So, at the end of the day, there are citizen review boards, and I agree with those. I believe there needs to be independent people that come in and review what's going on when there's excessive use of force. We also have a judge and a jury that can ultimately, make those decisions as well. The sheriff's department, it starts blurring the line and it starts to get too far away. The sheriff's there is to protect and to serve. It's not there to prosecute, and it's not there to make law. So, if you tell me a specific case, that you can think of where you believe someone should have been prosecuted from Broward Sheriff's Office and they weren't, I'll be more than glad to do the research for you, look it up, and I'll have a conversation with you about what I think. But again, as a sheriff, you're not there to prosecute anyone.
I'll save that discussion for another time, and we probably will talk about that. I would love to interview you on that. But my one question to you, what I'll leave you with is, what are your thoughts on the fact that the jail system in Broward County is predominantly African American? There's over a 40% 40% of the inmates in the Broward County jail system are African American. If there's no racial profiling done by officers, how is that possible?
Well, look, I can't tell you what the statistics are in the Broward Sheriff's Office today, in the Department of Detention, in the jails today, okay? But I can tell you that when I'm the leader of the agency, my men and women are going to treat people fairly, and we're not out there to racial profile. If somebody breaks the law, they're going to get arrested. We're going to follow whatever the law is. And so, I can't tell you what, happened under the current administration or the former administration, but I can tell you I'm going to have a very clear message to the men and women of the agency. We're there to treat everyone fairly, and we're not there to treat anybody unfairly. So, the statistics are what they are. I would love to hear the question, from the current administration.
Thank you.
For the answer, I'm sorry.
Mr. Tony, would you like to weigh in on why you think that over 40% of the jail system is African American and predominantly African American?
Sure.
Do you think? Go ahead.
Absolutely, but let me give you some more accurate figures. It's actually 70%. 70% of our inmate population constitute Black or brown people. And the byproduct of why that is happening is clear, is that there is systemic and institutional racism that exists in law enforcement, that exists in the courts, and that most certainly exists in our detention elements that we have here. To negate that and ignore that is dangerous, because we won't make any progress until we can accept it. In terms of whether or not we should be applying legislative efforts, I agree. I have no interest in being a legislator, but this is a constitutional officer position which allows for us to have a lobbying team. We have a lobbying team here in this organization that has been part of this sheriff's office in terms of attorneys who push forth agendas in terms of what legislative things they want to see inserted by the state to better help us serve our community. I also looked at what can we do to acquire more funding from a legislative standpoint to help introduce racial equity and implicit bias training. Representative Chevron Jones put that on the floor last year and it was denied. So I had to take an effort of looking at, I couldn't do it from a legislative standpoint. However, as the sheriff of this organization with almost $1 billion budget, I just reallocated $1 million to put racial equity and implicit bias training as a mandate, not only for my men, but now for every law enforcement officer in the county. We did that in a collective partnership with the chiefs of police. And so it's almost inexcusable to not consider the issues that are occurring and to push them out as your own and to ensure that we don't have a Minneapolis here. I don't want to go too much longer. I got to respect other people. And this is.
Mr. Wayne,
Yeah.
give me 1 second here. I'm just going to take a pause.
Thank you, Sean.
We're going to acknowledge you, Mr. Israel. Give me 1 second. I just wanted to stop and say a special thank you to Mr. Tony for acknowledging that racial profiling is an issue, because the first solution, you know, an unbiased solution is acknowledging that there's a problem. If you don't acknowledge a problem, it's like a cancer. It'll grow, it'll become worse. And unless you guys are trying to go backwards, or not you guys, but there's women on the call too, so I'd like to respect that. But any official that doesn't acknowledge this will lead down a slippery slope that'll lead us back to where we came from, which is slavery, 1865 and Jim Crow eras. And we are not trying to go back that way. So it's very important that as people in power and officials that you acknowledge that systematic racism exists and racial profiling is a problem in law enforcement, not just in Broward County, but in America. So thank you very much, Mr. Tony, for acknowledging that. Scott Israel?
Yeah, Sean, when you were talking with Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, you asked her if she would show some solidarity and come with you and Congressman Deutch to Tallahassee because you want to approach the governor and you want to take care of issues in our state. I applaud you for that, and I certainly would love to be part of something like that. My point being, when you have to stay in your lane and control the things that you could control, you and I are in a better position where we can make changes in the state of Florida vis-a-vis where it would be tougher in the United States of America. So what I did when I got in is I immediately recognized the disproportionate black and brown, especially young males that were in
Mr.
the
Pollock,
civil,
I know
that
you
were getting
wanted to say
arrested
something,
as
so I'm gonna go ahead
juveniles
and at least
and
give you a
put in
minute to speak.
juvenile programs. So
No,
what
the
I
only
did
thing that
is
I
I
wanted to
said
point out,
our
and it's
goal
pretty much been
will be to
covered,
measure our
it's not
success
only the
by the
sheriff's
young
office,
people
Sean,
we
the
keep
whole
out
system
of
needs to
jail,
be
not the young
overhauled.
people we
Whole
put
criminal
in jail.
justice system. And I say
And
that to say
after
this right
4
quick.
years
Broward County
of
is the
making
second
it
largest county
mandatory
in the
for
state out of
our
the
deputies
67
to
counties
issue
based
civil
on population.
citations,
But yet and
instead
still,
of
we
taking
sent
young
more
people to
juveniles
jail, two
to
things
the
happened.
juvenile justice
One
system. We
is
arrested
we
more.
found out crime was going down.
We arrested
People were
more and
criticizing me.
convicted
How
more
could you keep young
people
people
in
out of
Broward
jail
County
and at
than
the
any
same time
county in the
crime
state
goes
and sent
down?
them to state
I'll
prison.
tell you how, because
We
the
don't charge
recidivistic
more
rate
juveniles
in
than any
Broward County
other
of adults
county in the
was
state of Florida.
64%.
What that is
But in the
telling us
civil
is it's
citation
time that we get a
program,
new state
when
attorney
we
to work
arrested
along with us.
youngsters,
Somebody
they were
on this
coming
panel will
back
be
at
the new state
4%.
attorney. I don't know
Because they
who.
were finally
But
getting
that's
help
where
in
it
places
starts
like
from.
anger management,
Law
alcohol,
enforcement make the
narcotics,
arrest, but
and we
they
were
can tell the law
absolutely
enforcement,
blowing
hey,
up the
we're not
schoolhouse to
prosecuting
jailhouse
somebody
pipeline
for
by
an
doing
open
things
container.
we
We're
could
not
control.
prosecuting someone for a pipe. We have to work together. And that's all I'm saying. And we can do this in Broward County, but we just got to come together and stop talking about it and start putting it into action.
Thanks. My name is Justin McCormack. I'm running for state attorney as well. I'm one of the candidates. I currently serve as an assistant state attorney. I am the candidate in the race that is prosecuting police for brutality and misconduct. I'm running to bring criminal justice reform to Broward County. I want to provide more resources to investigating and prosecuting official misconduct within Broward County. I want to bring criminal justice reform to Broward County and address racial disparities. We agree they exist throughout the criminal justice system and really throughout life here in America. And I'm going to do whatever I can do to address them within the criminal justice system. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Check out my website, mccormackforstateattorney.com. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Get better. Shane?
So I want to say thank you to all the officials and the police officers and law enforcement that were on this call and gave us the time. Like I said, I am a civil rights activist, and I do look forward to working with the legislators and the law enforcement on this call, and hopefully I can reach out to you guys for interviews later on to go into further detail about certain subject matters. I wish you luck in your elections, but I'm going to leave you with this. Law enforcement is not a Swiss Army knife. The Broward County Sheriff's Office is not designed to handle every single facet of the lives of the citizens. And we understand that in Black Lives Matter, the Leaders of Liberty, and Black Lives Now. We all understand these individual groups. We understand that the police are human beings and that they have lives and they're just trying to do their jobs. So what we're trying to do is come to a common ground and make legislation and propose it to you guys and work with you and women, and so that we can end the police brutality.